Today, September 23rd, 2022. This is Speak On It, a production of the Retro Current team, nonprofit here at CAN TV. My name is Malik. Today we will start with a situation that I found interesting. We will not look at the whole piece, but a piece from the Phil Scott show, and I hope that we'll be able to get away, I have to use it like that, with using his work. We're not trying to violate anybody's
want to travel outside of
information that is good information. Matter of fact, one of the radio stations here in the city, every day, every evening, they have a program where they talk about relationships. And they've been doing that for years because it's a very important thing as it relates to some communities. Now, this particular piece I found to be very interesting because I remember I first went to Africa. It was after having met people that had been to Africa, Negro men. And some of those men had gotten married, and some of them had actually brought their wives to America. But I was spooked. I knew I didn't want to go over there and be trying to bring nobody back over here. And I didn't want to go over there and get hooked up with nobody and have them in control of a situation. I'm just like that. But I did have the opportunity to sponsor some people, spiritual people, priests, priestesses, Boca nuns, etc., to come to Chicago. But never with the intention of nobody staying here as a wife. But the people that I knew that brought women here, they brought them here, but it didn't take those wives too much time to find their homeland people, the real Africans, whether they were Ghanaians or whatever. You know, I'm thinking about one, Ashanti. That sister was interesting with that brother. And some other ones, and, you know, yeah, they was married over there, I guess. But when they got here, they wasn't married for long because them women had found their own thing and went on about their business. Now, I say that to say this. We all are looking for something that we imagine. But sometimes what we imagine ain't really what it is, but we got it. So this piece is interesting because the dude got a sister here, and they're in South Africa, but you can tell she's not really what you call a Negro type, but she is a Negro that any Negro male, mostly anyway, would be looking for. We would call her a mulatto. Y'all would call her a person of color. Some folks would call her high yellow. Some people would call her a red bone. Why? Because, you know, it's a mixture of the African DNA. And when I speak of African, you know what I'm talking about. The people from that continent and the South Africans. When I speak of them, you know what I'm talking about. The European colonizers. Hey, they think they've been there so long that, you know, they're African too. And I guess they are. It's where you are. Play that piece, bro. We're going to do about 3 to 4 minutes of this.
So some of you brothers, you know, say that you want to travel outside of America to get a wife, or we got one of our sisters from South Africa that want to give some of you some advice on how you can obtain or what you should leave in America if you would like a woman from South Africa. Let's review it.
To all African American men that asked whether or not they can find themselves good wives in Africa, you know, yes, 100% you can find yourselves good wives in Africa. I'm sure you can find yourself a good wife anywhere in the world. But if you are moving to Africa, 100%, I can tell you now that Africa has of the most beautiful women, of the most kindest, understanding women, 100%. But here's a tip, right? When you do come to South Africa or you come to Africa, the 50-50 thing that you guys do that side, leave it there. Leave it there. Please understand that the feminist movement, our ability to participate in it is very limited due to our traditions and our culture, you know. So culture and traditions supersede any participation in any movement, the feminist movement being one of it. So it's probably not a bad idea to leave that 50-50 in the States because,
Let me stop right there. Now, I've been to South Africa, I've been to Kenya, I've been to Ethiopia, and what some of you brothers maybe don't understand that's been so permeated with, Western society, particularly America, once you get outside of Western society, it's on a traditional system. Now, traditional in America, it may cost you a little bit. You got to be a man that's making some money. Just so if you want to be one income, your wife at home, kids, her being with the kids, etc. Just talking about South Africa a little bit. I was in South Africa in March, right? You can do the one income thing. Let's say you brothers could be a digital nomad, right? You're making your money in America, but you're over there. Cool. I talked to one particular sister that used to be a police officer with the LAPD. She retired 20 years out of LAPD. Now she's living in Johannesburg, South Africa. And she told me the area where she's at, which it's a nice area, a 2-bedroom apartment was $600 US dollars a month. Okay. So in their society, they expect you to be a man. They expect that. So being a man is providing a household, providing, a car to drive, clothes on the back of you and your lady, paying all the bills, doing all that. That just was expected of you. And that's kind of like the majority of the African continent. Matter of fact, they not on all that feminism, which she ain't lying about. They not on the alternative lifestyles. Now South Africa do allow a little bit of that, but it's not dominant. In some other African countries, you better not come over there with them alternative lifestyles. You better not. You will get ran up out of there. But expect to be a traditional man. She's right. 50-50 don't work over there.
You will also see that there's a video that I did of a gentleman that had asked whether or not Africans like African American men. And if you go to the post, you will read that a lot of women said no due to the fact that they do not want to do 50-50. Now, this does not mean that we do not have good women. It just means that at the end of the day, culture is important, And as women, we do understand that we need to be supportive, understanding, loving, and caring towards our husbands, And we will do that. We also understand that we need to work together towards a common goal, which is to make the marriage work. And we will work, and we will help, and we will support. But the 50-50 thing is not a prerequisite for the relationship.
Well, what she's saying is technically biblical, right? If you would go back to the origination, they say God created man, all right?
The point that
man
I wanted to drive, or should I say, just speak on is this, the 50-50 thing. Now, to me, 50-50 makes sense. 49, 51, 51, 49. That's what I'm on. Sometimes the man can be more. Sometimes the woman can be more. But both of them got to put some money on the table. You know what I'm saying? I don't care where you from. You can come straight from the Lord. Unless you got some money with you, American spending money, I'm going to be asking for your part there. I am. Not in a bogus way. But if you got an income, then you need to use the income. All that other stuff you getting from me just like I'm giving to you. This whole thing about, you just take care of the kids, that's okay. Yeah, it's all right. You should do that. And if that's what you're doing and you're doing a good job, then, all right, I'll do the best I can. But if you're one of those just sitting there and what used to be just hanging, but now y'all just on that thing, visualizing by being all over the place, no, I ain't going. You got a job, you got some skills, I expect you to work. And I expect you to pay some bills. That's true. No, don't tell me nothing about because you the woman and you loving it. Now, if you want old-fashioned like my grandmama was, you understand, and you cooking and you washing and you out in the field and you this and that and woo, 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 yeah, okay. I don't expect no money from you. But just laying up talking about you a housewife, yeah, well, you okay? Yeah, you better go on and get you a real job and bring some money and put in this house. I wanted to throw it out there like that. But since we're not live here, you know what I mean, we can't go back and forth. But I'll be using this same clip on the radio piece so we can go back and forth. Because I hear a whole lot of people talking about this situation. And he's right about the other things he mentioned. There are different things. And what I saw in Africa, I mean, and just the same thing I see here. I don't want nobody that ain't working. And I guess because I'm a senior citizen, the kid thing ain't that big of a thing. You won't be staying at home. Hell no, you won't be staying at home raising your grandkids if they ain't mine. Oh, hell no. You think I'm going to let you stay at the house and you going to be raising that other dude's kids, grandkids? Better get you. You better go. And if you retired, yeah, it depends on, you know, how it went. I ain't going to be a pig. 50-50, that's the point. The point is, a lot of people are talking about that here, but really in the Negro culture, these new generations, really the dude is a dependent in so many cases. He's just another kid. He ain't even a sex toy no more. He's just a thing. Usually he be the one that got the little hook for the dope, marijuana. And she probably got Section 8. You know what I'm saying? And all the mismatched kids. Now that ain't the typical American situation, but that's the one that they promote. They showed us the movie Claudine, and they showed us what the government did to destroy the nucleus family as it relates to the Negro so-called family. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening here. And then we know the little bit we know about slavery, where they used the man as a stud, basically. And they moved him around depending on what they was looking for. If they wanted a big dude strong enough to pick all that cotton, cut down them trees, cut that cane, then they sent a female from somebody else's plantation and he would serve her. They da-da-da-woo. You know, just like a cow, just like a horse, just like a dog. That's what it was about. But you don't really want to hear that part of it. So a lot of what you see is a continuation. But like that woman was clear. Don't come over here thinking that you're going to, you know, get some 50-50. And I say to anybody, if you got somebody, the able-bodied person, any able-bodied person, in any relationship, there should be a cooperative understanding. Each one of them should carry responsibility. Now, what percentage is between the people? But if she working a job in America, she got her career, and she probably making more than the man anyway in America. Now, what is she supposed to do with that money? He paying all the bills and she making more money than him. What the hell is she supposed to do with all of that money? See what I'm saying? She's supposed to be rich. She's supposed to have all of the money. She's supposed to have all of the comforts, and he's supposed to struggle. Like dude here, he said, we just ain't taking the time because I'm running my mouth. He said he'd be the one working 16 hours a day. Hell no, I ain't working on 16 hours a day and you laying up on your behind. Hell no, get up. Go to work. And if you ain't went to work, hell, I'm going to spend some money to send you to school so you can get you some certification or a degree, a skill, so you can help with the situation so we can both get some rest. Let's move on, man. I'm going to leave that alone. Just enough for you to have something to speak on. All right, the next piece, what we got here, Mari, we can get down here to this purge law. We talked about that last week. You ain't going to see it up there, but some things that are happening. I think one of the things that's happening in Kankakee, they suing the governor and the attorney general. And in Orland Park, they're doing something Chicago should have did. They cut a deal with the Fed. So they bypass it. A lot of these communities around Chicago are saying, look, your
County
violence,
State's attorney,
your ineptness, your incompetence got your criminals, your predators coming out here victimizing our people. And we ain't going. We're going to be sure that you get punished. And that's something That's back to last week, and I'm sure Maury probably done already ran into it because the fact that we're going to have to edit that, I'm sure. Because the piece we
He has
used last
filed a
week, I
lawsuit
looked
to
back
stop
on-
the Safety
on
Act.
the
Attorney Jim Rowe is
page,
suing Governor
and
Pritzker
there
and
it is.
Attorney General Kwame Raoul. Rowe wants the controversial law to be declared unconstitutional. The Safety Act goes into effect January 1st. It will end cash bail, but if the suspect is deemed a flight risk or a risk to the community, that detainee could remain behind bars.
Now, that speaks for itself. See, there's a lot you need to pay attention. They need to repeal that damn law. The idiots that came up with that, people already living in a hellhole. They're not safe in their homes. They're not safe on the streets. They ain't safe in school. They ain't safe in church. They ain't safe nowhere. They ain't safe in the car. And now you saying because he's a poor creature, but criminal, with the intent to be a criminal. Not somebody driving and forgot their driver license and ain't got no money on them. And they ain't got it on them because they don't want to get stuck up and get taken away from them. That person, yeah. That person, let him go home. Let her go home. But that creature that came with the intent to steal something or to take something or whatever, hell no. If you ain't got no bail money, don't take your behind to jail. We knew that when I was coming up. I went to jail. Wasn't nobody coming to get me. I knew that from the get. But now you want to let them know from the get, starting January the 1st, 2023, that, oh, you can go do whatever you want to do. You know, there's a no bail thing and everybody confused about what it means, da-da-da-da-da. Arlen Park got the right idea. Go straight to the Fed. Show that piece, brother. Well, why you finding the piece about Arlen Park and how they, I'm going to say, outsourcing or collaborating with the federal government to address this issue? And then you got this governor with his, and I ain't even talking about Kim Foxx. Kim Foxx is already doing what she was doing before this. Now this and the thing that Kim Foxx doing, we upright citizens ain't got no chance. And y'all saw what we talked about last week as it relates to that. So I mean, we have to be real careful. Now that piece that you look for, it said Arlen Park implements new policy that will bypass Safety Act. Now it should be closer to the top of it. There you go.
Some of these cases.
Not actually allow dangerous offenders back.
Kim Foxx oftentimes doesn't charge some of these cases, and oftentimes we get very poor bails, and with the Safety Act, it's going to be much worse.
In anticipation of a controversial new Illinois law, Orland Park is taking matters into their own hands.
They are the first community in the nation to partner with the feds to prosecute gun crimes.
Natalie is back with why they are taking this drastic action. Natalie.
Dawn, angry over the way criminals are prosecuted in Cook County, the Orland Park mayor says this will prevent felons from returning right back to the streets. Last night, the village board approved a partnership with the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. It allows 2 police officers to partner with 2 ATF agents to investigate gun trafficking and violent gun crimes. Individuals breaking federal laws can then be sent directly to the U.S. State's Attorney's Office for prosecution and face much tougher penalties.
In many cases, we've had a difficult time getting charges from Cook County. And in some of those cases, we did actually go to the AUSA, but the process for doing so was much, much longer than it'll be now. Now we'll be able to bypass Cook County completely and go straight to the AUSA.
The agreement is in place for 5 years at no additional cost to the village. The mayor says the move targets the new Illinois law called the Safety Act that will eliminate cash bail in some cases. But that's not all. The mayor of neighboring Tinley Park firing on all cylinders against the Safety Act in a YouTube video released today.
The name of this act is an absolute joke because the only people it keeps safe are the multitudes of criminals it protects. This act and the legislators who passed it in the middle of the night without even reading the 750 plus pages have completely abandoned the people of Illinois and the police officers who serve them in favor of thieves and murderers.
Mayor Michael Glotz ended by thanking the Will and Kankakee County State's attorneys for filing lawsuits against the act and urged all voters to call their elected officials to repeal it. Now, supporters of the act, including Governor Pritzker, say it will make for a more fair justice system and will not actually allow dangerous offenders back on the street. Anthony?
You know, I don't know how no one that live in Chicago or anywhere in America in this day and time can actually believe what Pritzker is saying. Okay, you need a bail because it's somewhat of a deterrent. But this whole idea, because you poor, and in many cases because you black, and because other folks have been victimized, now you got to victimize the whole society to be sure you don't do justice for a predator, a criminal that does that. Many cases have a record of doing that. I mean, common sense know the difference between, like the example I used in the beginning, a traffic stop. If there's no, well, I don't know, drugs is so legal in so many places. I ain't gonna say you shouldn't have a gun, because like the young folks tell me, man, I'd rather be caught with it than without it, period. That's it, that's all. I agree with them. You know what I'm saying? If I was their age, I'd be packing too. It's a matter of reality. Because if they get caught out there without it by the opposition, they know what's up. But that's because society has enabled, you know what I mean? Have encouraged that type of culture. All that garbage flowing off these car radios or tapes, promoting and glamorizing the violence of that type of street life. That contributes. So you want one of them that's imitating some mess he heard to be free to live out that in a community. I salute them white folk in the surrounding counties. They got enough sense to know they need to repeal that foolishness. And for them Negro creatures that's down there in Springfield that act like that they don't know that this is not a service to the community. Now, you don't just need to be ashamed of yourself. You needed to be kicked out of office. Every last one of you. I mean, y'all pathetic. You see the community suffering, and you got the audacity to come up with something like that. Come on, brother, next move. Yeah, that's a good piece right here.
Chicago dangerous, but Chicago is MAGA country. You can't have these migrants going out for Subway sandwiches at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's when the hate crimes start happening. They'll be much safer in the suburbs. Greg Abbott is the governor of Texas and joins me now. How interesting do you find it that the mayor called you not Christian and then bust the migrants to the burbs?
Jesse, it was the most astonishing thing I've ever seen. She is the epitome of being a hypocrite for doing exactly what she was criticizing me for, but also not even acknowledging what President Biden has done. President Biden has been flying these migrants around the entire country, sometimes in the darkness of night, and she's never said a word about what he's done. And you pointed out Kamala Harris, who hasn't done anything to secure the border. The fact of the matter is, this is an American problem, and Americans across the country are going to have to come to grips with the reality. We have a broken border. By the way, Jesse, a border that before President Biden took office, we had the lowest number of illegal border crossings in decades. President Trump had solved this, and Biden decimated everything that President Trump had done to fix the border. This is Biden's fault, pure and simple.
Other cities are bracing for the Abbott buses. A couple dozen migrants, they're sounding the alarm. They said they can't handle it, even after inviting everyone south of the U.S. border to stay in their sanctuary cities. What other cities are you considering sending migrants to?
Well, you know, Jesse, it is interesting that they all are concerned about a few dozen or a few hundred migrants coming to their town, and we get that many per hour in almost every community across the border. So we're dealing with this all the time, and I'm just helping out our local communities who are located on the border and moving migrants from those locations up to New York, to D.C., to Chicago, and maybe some other locations coming to places across America sometime soon.
Okay, so a little cliffhanger. That's what we call a tease in the business. I'm sure people are bracing for these bus loads. And, you know, these are rich cities. These are billion-dollar budget cities with lots of resources. They say, I don't understand what all the complaining's about. Governor Greg Abbott, thank you very much.
Now, I know.
Thank you, Jesse.
You all want to say that's fake news and, you know, woo-woo. You know what I mean? All of that's true. Everything the governor said is true. Why is it you, Negro, trying to act like you don't know the truth from fake? A hypocrite and a snake. Stop playing. And part of what's happening, you need to pay attention. We mentioned it before. This whole slick trick with the relabeling of this new crop that they letting in here now. Now they are asylum seekers running from communism. Man, they ain't been talking about no communism issues since I was a boy. And now you got these creatures, many of them coming from the countries, and you're going to hear Biden name the countries and hear his arrogance, where he say it really wouldn't make sense to send them back where they come from. They coming here to have a better life. People here can't have a better life. Not because they lazy, sorry, and stupid, no. But because the system don't see them as worthy. And I'm talking about basically the Negro. But Biden done went even farther. He done made a distinction between this Mexican Spanish speaker and these new ones he got coming here. You see? And that's probably because of the fact you Negroes, y'all really ought to slow down. Biden told you he was a Ku Klux Klan person. He told you when he was running for the presidential thing that he's going to look out for the Spanish-speaking people. He did. But he also has made it clear in this comment that he's going to make in a minute that the Mexicans are not his priority. It's this other group that he's going to mention that's his priority. Because he really don't see the Mexican because they tan. They more of a darker complexion. He see them as field hands. He do. Working in the field, doing cheap labor. But these other people, he gonna say they running from communism. But the Mexicans running from what? Cartels. Think how they plan. Asylum seekers, one running from a political oppression, which is a lie, so they can just run in here and get better treatment, get moved up over the Haitian, over the black Cuban. Can't talk about the African. Hell, can't no African swim from Africa over here. But that Cuban and that Haitian, we ain't seeing none of them going to none of them hotels, $200 a night, being taken to Martha Vineyard. And now you got some operatives out there, got these people that ain't even damn citizens, talking about suing somebody. Go on with this piece, man, because I went too far talking to these people.
On the border, why is the border more overwhelmed under your watch, Mr. President?
Because there are 3 countries that there are fewer with fewer immigrants coming from Central America and from Mexico. This is a totally different circumstance. What's on my watch now is Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. And the ability to send them back to those states is not rational. You could send them back and have them, we're working with Mexico and other countries to see if we can stop the flow. But that's the difference. Thank you.
President Washington looks like he's sending migrants to
Delaware. Do you rerun that piece? I want the Negro to hear that. I want them to hear it. He say the Cubans, Venezuelans, and Nicaragua.
Mr. President, why is the border more overwhelmed? On the border, why is the border more overwhelmed under your watch, Mr. President?
Because there are 3 countries that are never have, there are fewer. Can't you holler louder? I'm sorry.
On the border, why is the border more overwhelmed under your watch, Mr. President?
Because there are 3 countries that are never have, there are fewer immigrants coming from Central America and from Mexico. This is a totally different circumstance. What's on my watch now is Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. And the ability to send them back to those states is not rational. You could send them back and have them, we're working with Mexico and other countries to see if we can stop the flow. But that's the difference. Thank you.
President Washington looks like he's sending migrants to Delaware. Do you have any comment or response to that, sir?
He should come visit. We have a beautiful shoreline.
You know, Amari, while I'm running my mouth, there's a piece up here, if you can find it, where the ICE official testifies Biden administration is only dealing with a fraction as compared to Obama and the other situation. Now, I don't know, man. This is some serious business we're dealing with here. What's happening is that Biden them, that piece, Biden them got a hell of an agenda. Now listen to this man. And we ain't gonna use the whole piece, but I want you to understand. And yes, I spent a lot of time on this immigration piece. Because number one, I think the Mexicans and anybody from those Spanish-speaking Americas, they shouldn't be even in this situation. And that including the people he just mentioned. But for him to signal them out and elevate them above the Mexicans, see Mexicans, but, all right, brother.
And the highest ranking official at ERO for almost all of the Biden administration, correct?
Yes.
Director, ICE currently is removing less aliens from the United States than it has in the last decade, right?
Objection. I do not have the last 10 years data available, but it is less than at least the last 4 years that I have here.
In 2012, a decade ago, under President Obama, ICE removed almost 7 times the number of aliens than the Biden administration did in either 2021 or 2022, right?
Objection. That appears correct.
In Exhibit 8, Director Lucero is referring to the effect of the Biden administration interim priorities on enforcement, correct?
Objection. That appears correct.
Okay. And his conclusion, Director Lucero's conclusion, was that ICE bookends were going to be reduced by half of historical numbers, right?
Objection. That appears correct.
So the Biden administration's interim priorities were going to cut in half ICE's bookends.
Objection. That appears correct.
Now, not only are removals and bookends declining under the Biden administration, ICE is detaining less aliens than it did during the Trump administration, correct?
Objection. That's correct.
In 2021, ICE detained approximately 40% of the aliens than it did in 2019, right?
Objection.
And it's 50,000 to 19,000, 50 to 20.
That appears correct.
Okay. Again, under the Biden administration in 2022, ICE detained 40% of the aliens
Well, y'all get the
that it
flavor.
did in
We can move
2019
on.
during the last immigration surge, right?
They done told you since Biden been in there,
That appears correct.
nearly 2 million, they calling them aliens. I thought, and I guess Bobby Rush, I thought he said you couldn't use that word. He said, you know, you can't call them that. Yeah, I don't know. Immigrants, illegal, whatever. But these people that Biden just got through talking about, these people, if they just get here, they got it made. He ain't gonna send them back. Ain't got a trip. You come here illegal. Man, when I went to Africa, you always conscious of when your visa is gonna expire. Cause you know they gonna come get you, and if you don't have a relationship already with that embassy, them Africans gonna lock you up. They ain't gonna have you running around over there. No, they ain't. And that's coming legally. So how now can anybody come here illegally, and the damn president got the audacity to say if they just get here, then we're gonna put them above and ahead of everybody else, including the Negro who's been here damn near forever and still ain't got so-called equity. See what I'm saying? But Biden's agenda, nearly 2 million of them, and he ain't been in there 2 years good. And he just letting them in here. And I ain't got no problem with people coming. That's cool. Just don't deny us like you've been doing all these years. You know what I'm saying? Because we got work to do, Negro. And remember, we always been the minority over here. We have. We might have not been in these urban areas, but we've been the minority. But they have always basically, to a degree, accepted the fact that if the Negro came together, particularly after he had the responsibility and the opportunity, although he went to hell, to vote, and now he's losing it because they're suppressing the opportunity. If he voted as a bloc, he could change things and determine which one of those creatures that he was going to suffer under the least. Now that he's been distracted by these damn Democrats, he's really losing damn near everything that was accomplished by his ancestors. Let's go to this, man. Let's move to something else. I'm through with that for the time being.
Police officers.
Now is the time to join the force as CPD looks to beef up its ranks.
CPD recruiters say they need to have as many people at the academy as possible, restore their ranks, and show the current officers that help is on the way.
Sally Schulze has more on the push to find quite a few good men and women.
With crime rates high and staffing levels low, Chicago police are hungry to hire more officers.
We have our recruiters not just scouring the city of Chicago, but we are around the nation.
CPD is holding exams at Malcolm X College and 6 other schools this week for people wanting to be an officer, like Ray LaFleur.
I grew up in a law enforcement family. A lot of my uncles followed in their steps. Grandfather was a Chicago police officer, so it was just kind of in the blood pretty much.
To find future graduates of the police academy, CPD has expanded who's eligible. They're not just looking for those with college credits or law enforcement and military backgrounds. People in trades are welcome too.
You can work in the medical field. You can work HVAC, plumbing, electrician. You can be a social worker. You can be a teacher's aide.
Passing the test here at Malcolm X College and the other locations is clearly just the first step. That's why police have recruiters to match up with each applicant for everything that comes next.
When you hit that wall and you say, man, I don't want to do this, that recruiter can pull you along the way.
Sergeant Nathaniel Miles acknowledges possible roadblocks. Families might try to talk you out of this job. News reports might make you question it. After all, you put your life on the line. So recruiters say passion for the job is key.
I totally agree with it. You know, I think that's what we're lacking in law enforcement now. If we want to live in a safer city, people have to do their part.
For those who want to join CPD's ranks, exams are happening twice a day at all city colleges of Chicago, Friday and Saturday. Sally Schulze, Fox 32, Chicago.
Well, I just want to remind y'all that you don't have to be a citizen to be a cop in Chicago. And, you know, that's an interesting thing, and it's a problem for me as a Negro. You can come here from Ukraine, Afghan, and now all these people. and you can just be a cop. Matter of fact, there's more Spanish-speaking cops than Negroes right now as I speak. Now think. Now that big brother you saw talking there, who come from a family of cops.
Some people can play charades.
But they always find reasons, and I'm not going to reiterate the reasons, to disqualify Negroes. And they always like to use the psychological. We've talked about that on Speak On It before. But the truth of the matter is, until they allow us to police our own colonies, we will never have safe communities. We won't. And this fake safety law, that ain't gonna help nothing. I hope they can get a whole bunch of Negro, black, whatever you use, as long as you don't be hiring no more damn people of color that can be from any other country that's got a team. Hell no. I'm talking about the descendants of slaves that lives in these communities that are suffering because of the violence. That the damn people in Springfield and on the 5th floor of Chicago and the governor don't seem to understand that violence negate any progress you make in any other area if you are not safe. All of the money you make, they can take. And now you don't want them to be taken to jail because they don't have bail money. See how, man, run the next one. Now this one here, there's gonna be just a little history lesson you finna get. And just pay attention.
Reparations in terms of if people want it though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa, and when across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages.
Now, Mara, there's one that's called Outkick. While I'm talking, if you could bring that one up, that's a younger person, white woman, that's probably Lemon's generation. Find that one if they ain't took it down and run that. Because, see, I think we got it twisted. And the truth is, that woman brought something, and we hear what she said. Yeah, we do. But the bottom line is, there's more to it than that. And that piece that I'm speaking of, it should be close to the top. Because I just posted that this morning, coming here. And it's a young blonde woman that, and it says out, there you go.
Not only celebrating her death.
This little girl here.
CNN's Don Lemon got a history lesson on the slave trade and the supply chain, and it gives me great pleasure to share my final thoughts on the great humbling of Mr. Lemon. Queen Elizabeth's body hadn't gone cold before the rabid vultures of the global left started not only attacking her, not only celebrating her death, but demanding reparations. Remember this?
She wore a crown with pillaged stones from India and Africa. And now what you're seeing, at least in the black communities that I'm a part of, they want reparations.
Yes, rich, elite TV personalities who have never been enslaved, nor do they know anyone who's been enslaved, demand payback for historical injustices. That's the bedrock of the woke movement in all its nonsensical, whiny, and moronic glory. But it wasn't just The View's Sunny Hostin who had the classless audacity to go on national television and say such a stupid thing as much of the world mourned a beloved queen. CNN's resident oppression Olympian Don Lemon also felt the need to make the reparations argument, and it didn't go well. Marie Antoinette famously said, "Let them eat cake," but here's Don Lemon eating crow.
And then you have those who are asking for reparations for
colonialism, and they're wondering, $100 billion, $24 billion here and there, $500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you are, you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And when across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery.
Oh, Don, you probably shouldn't invoke history without knowing history, especially with a guest that clearly does know history, because it makes you look like a giant tool. But it's worth mentioning Don didn't have much of a reply to that public and televised intellectual undressing. He simply switched topics. But I'm glad this little bit took place on CNN, though, because I doubt the remaining few dozen viewers that network still has are aware of the true history and origins of the slave trade. This is all a great lesson to those out there who think the world owes them something, whether it's due to the color of their skin, their pronoun preferences, or what have you. No, get over yourselves. The everlasting victimhood complex isn't cute, and it benefits no one, especially those who are inflicted by it. This Don Lemon clip is also a reminder of how important it is for us to study history rather than erase it or allow some to make it up as they go based on a woke narrative pushed by woke mainstream media propagandists like Don Lemon. CNN is failing for two reasons. They don't have their precious Trump punching bag, and they pretend to be a news source when it's quite obvious the majority of their personalities don't know or care about basic facts. And there you have it. Feel free to watch that clip a few dozen times. I know I did. And those are my final thoughts. Be sure to catch the end.
See, this is what you got to understand. In the Negro community, we just, you're just looking at what they tell you to look at. That young woman right there. Oh, hell yeah, you're going to call her racist. You're going to want to discount her. You're going to want to do all of that. Yeah, you are. But that's what she doing. You got this station here in Chicago, and they let you just talk and run your damn mouth the way you want to. Mm-hmm. Well, you ain't the only one that got talk commentators. You see her? They on their job. And that's why I hope in these other spots in Illinois that they make them repeal this Purge Act. See, you got it twisted. Now, you thought you was making progress until Obama paid them so-called gatekeepers not to talk about reparations while he was there. You understand? He put them on payroll. So they was just a bunch of... They just, got paid. That's what they always do. So now, some of y'all been talking about reparations your whole life, basically, but you ain't been able to make too much headway. They did a little something out in Evanston. Good, whatever they do, cool. But don't nobody want to talk about the money they gave the people from the Japanese and the people from the Holocaust and all. You don't want to talk about that type of situation. But when you talk about reparations for real live slaves that are dead now, their ancestors, you heard what the little girl said. And the point is, that little girl is the generation of now. So they are as ingrained as their great-grandparents were in the position, no, we ain't paying you nothing. Da-da-da-woo-woo. And there it is. So don't y'all get out here and let your little foolishness, like she said, about the woke thing. You know what I mean? They done just snowed the Negro, pulled his nose wide open, and he can't breathe. But he's still trying to stand up for those that's oppressing him and got their foot on his neck. Young woman was correct. Not in, the end result, because we do want reparations. We are entitled to reparations. We are. But she was correct in speaking her piece. And what you need to do is be correct in listening and trying to find pieces like that so you can see what they doing. The piece we used last week that I said earlier gonna probably mean we have to edit the show we did last week because they were saying that there was some false information. Well, I got the information off of the damn social media. And then they say because the man said murder instead of second-degree murder, it was false. But they do that when they want to pick. As long as their people are pushing the stuff, it's cool. But let a Negro try to push it, then they want to find reasons. Talking about what is the community standards. All right. Amari know what to do. When they come, he'll just cut it out and bypass it, and we'll go to something else. But they working, man. They working hard. And you back here talking and trying to look out and hold up Biden and his Democratic cabal. Next piece, brother. We got to get out of here. Now, keep
A contractor known as Fat Leonard, on the run for weeks after ripping off his GPS ankle bracelet, was recaptured in Venezuela, authorities say. Leonard Glenn Francis pleaded guilty in 2015 to a sprawling bribery and corruption scandal involving senior naval officers, the largest in naval history, and he was set to be sentenced today, but he slipped away from his Tony San Diego home weeks ago.
The Navy is embarrassed in the extreme, but so is the U.S. Marshal Service with somebody cutting off an ankle bracelet and disappearing. That was an incredibly well-planned, organized escape.
After an alert was activated indicating Leonard's bracelet had been tampered with on September 4th, San Diego police went to his home.
Trying to knock on the door, but you're not getting a response. Subject isn't responding to messages or calls.
But all they found, they said, was the bracelet, no Leonard. The U.S. government posting a $40,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. Neighbors told U.S. Marshals that several U-Haul trucks had been in and out of the house all week.
There were people that were moving things in and out, but they were just shadows. I saw them from my peripheral vision.
The director of Interpol Venezuela says Francis got to the country from Mexico with a stopover in Cuba. He was apprehended by Venezuelan authorities at the Simon Bolivar International Airport while trying to eventually get to Russia, according to a Marshals spokesperson. Francis was on house arrest due to health issues, including a bout with kidney cancer. He was arrested in 2013 and pleaded guilty to offering $500,000 in bribes of luxury travel, prostitutes, and free hotel rooms to Navy officers. A court then finding he overcharged the Navy to the tune of roughly $35 million for servicing vessels and lured ships to his port in Indonesia, all of it in exchange for classified information, now faces 25 years in prison.
Fat Leonard knew where the ships were going, and he was capable, possibly, of providing that information to other parties, or someone he subcontracted to might have done that.
This historic public corruption scandal lasted more than a decade and involved dozens of U.S. Navy officers.
You're talking about commanders and admirals. How serious is that?
It's brutally painful.
All right, Sam Brock joins us now from Miami. Sam, do we have any sense of when Fat Leonard will be prosecuted in the U.S.?
So we are relying right now, Tom, on the Venezuelan authorities. And the director of Interpol in Venezuela says that they've initiated at this point the proceedings for extraditing Fat Leonard. The problem is, who knows what that timeline looks like? Is it going to be days? Is it going to be weeks? And also, will it happen at all? Because the United States, Tom, of course, doesn't recognize the government of Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela is one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world right now. There is no U.S. embassy in Venezuela. It is very rare that law enforcement officials from the United States and Venezuela are even cooperating on any sort of law enforcement issue. So is this even going to come to fruition? And you got to ask, what sort of chip is Venezuela looking to use this for? Do they want sanctions relief, to have someone else freed from the United States? It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
So, Sam, you know, he's called Fat Leonard. He obviously lost a lot of weight, but he was being watched, and then he cuts off his electric monitoring device. How easy is that to do?
You would think it would be very difficult to get a GPS monitor bracelet off. However, I spoke with a law enforcement official who used to work for the FBI. He said it's actually not that hard. It appears that he cut it off using some heavy scissors in his house. The reason many people who have these bracelets on don't do it is because they know they're going right back to jail. And in fact, there was an alert that was issued as soon as the monitor was dislodged. However, by the time authorities got there, he was already gone. There was no disincentive in this case for Fat Leonard not to take it off because he was planning on leading an international excursion. Of course, authorities looking for him for weeks. And now maybe he's regretting that.
Now, let me just say this. See, that's back to Biden. And they hypocritical, what did he say? Venezuelans. You understand? So those are the people he's concerned about. So now he's just letting them in. And then they hear about dude here, see this part of the deal. But he might not never get back. They already knew where he was at. The deal, yeah, I'm speaking on what I'm speaking on. No, it ain't coming from nobody other than common sense. Common sense is simple. Dude, $40,000, they already knew. But he slipped with $35 million. They knew he was there. So now part of the kickdown is, well, we'll give him back to you, but just let our people come in. And this old, and Biden, what he doing? You see what he doing. That is. Now run that piece about, it really ain't a video, but just run that headline, Omari, about these Air Force gender inclusive training. Just run that headline and I'll make a comment on that. I wish we could have found some, what's-my-jig on it? That was it back in the back, I think. Yeah. Try that piece, look like a boat. Try that. Bottom line is this. What it says is this. They've been instructed, it ain't way down there. They've been instructed not to use the word mom and dad. We had a show about that before as it relates to what they were teaching these kids in school. Now this is the Air Force people. Don't use that word. So, now let me just read it so maybe it's Air Force gender inclusive training. Tell cadets not to use mom, dad, or boyfriend, girlfriend, if you read the article. Don't worry about it. I done told them what it's about. Bottom line is, now go to that piece that says, Omari, Michigan Department of Education, although I don't know why they're talking about Michigan in the headline, because they're really talking about Portland in the video. Encourages child sexual transition without parental consent. If you can find that one, let's get that one because that's almost the end of this. That piece and another piece, yeah, that piece, try that piece with showing the pictures. What did that say up under that? That don't say the cadets? But should I say the U.S. gender people? Yeah, that's one. Now, Omari, who knows? Omari might be done found the daggone videos. I don't know. But whether he do or not, the truth of the matter is here. Knowing him, he's probably trying to clean it up to see what he got. But the bottom line is, that's deep. They telling these people in training them, telling them, don't use the word mom, don't use the word dad, don't use the word boyfriend, girlfriend, use this other stuff. Man, this is crazy. Oh, forget about it. They got music, Omari. Forget that. I done said all need to be said on that. These devils will be done block this because of the music. Take that down. They don't need that. Let them go find it and read it. Now let's go to this piece about these people telling these kids in these schools. Once again, Michigan Department of Education, I don't know, like I said, why they use Michigan. But they do that. They'll tell you about some stuff. All right, that's cool. I mean, you can do it like that. They can read it if you want them to do it like that. But as long as we don't have no music, because they're going to use it. Now, let's go to this. So while you're cleaning that up, that's a good piece. I think we should really pay attention to what's happening. It's happening in the military, the Navy, the Air Force right there. And it's happening in schools all over the place. Who is behind this, man? What evil spirit has taken over the mind of these creatures in America that got people going along with this seduction? It don't make sense.
It seems like people have forgotten that this fight is still going on, and in swing states. Shouldn't this be a bigger issue to politicians, frankly, independents, politicians of all parties? This is common sense.
That's right, but what we saw last year was really an awakening from parents on critical race theory And parents were going, they were protesting at school board meetings, but the problem is that all of the bureaucrats who were pushing CRT last year are back, and they're pushing radical gender theory, not just in blue states, but also in red states. And the documents and the videos from Michigan are quite shocking. The State Department of Education in Michigan is now training teachers how to facilitate child sexual transitions and telling them they should keep those transitions a secret from parents, even when their kids are suicidal. Let me be very clear. To these bureaucrats, their ideology is more important than not only your kid's education, but more important than your kid's life.
Well, their goal is to really cleave the parents from the children, separate the two. So your values and the values that the kids are learning at school are at odds and ultimately lead to the rebellion from the child against the parent. That's been the goal all along. And I think now parents are like, whoa, I guess I should focus on who's actually providing these materials to the school.
Right.
That's right. And what I've seen a lot in my reporting over the last 3 months is that particularly white girls are most susceptible to this kind of ideology. They can't be radicalized along the lines of race, but they can be radicalized along the lines of sex and gender identity. And so this is something that I'm seeing everywhere. I've talked to a lot of teachers that are saying maybe a third of my classroom, 40% of my classroom, the students, especially the white girls, are identifying as non-binary or pansexual or gender fluid or whatever these new sexual identities pop up to be. And this is not only being accepted by the schools, this is actually being encouraged and facilitated by schools, not just in San Francisco and New York City, but districts all over the country. Parents have to be on guard. They have to be aware. They have to start pushing back.
It takes your breath away. I mean, this is happening in Idaho, and there's a law on the books in Idaho that traditional teaching must be adhered to. And they're just completely subverting the law as it's passed by the state legislature. So this all has to be nullified and defunded. Now, the seeds of these lesson plans that are blooming now in corporate America. The CEO of the San Francisco-based company Twilio announced layoffs today, delivering this message: we are committed to becoming an anti-racist, anti-oppression company. Layoffs like this can have a more pronounced impact on marginalized communities, so we were particularly focused on ensuring our layoffs were carried out through an anti-racist, anti-oppression lens. Chris, so this CEO is admitting that people will get fired based on the color of their skin, right? That's what's happening.
We're seeing this a lot in tech firms. They're pretty explicit about it. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. They're deliberately penalizing whites, Asians, and men, all of whom are categorized as oppressors in critical race theory. And so these are the first people to either be let go or they're the first people to get booted out of those employment lines because they're supposedly overrepresented in tech. This is not just in schools. It's not just in left-wing congressional offices. This ideology, critical race theory, is starting to eat through your company's HR departments. It has to result in lawsuits because this is an open and shut case. I don't need to tell you. This is a kind of textbook racial discrimination. It has to be stopped.
Yeah, this is gonna be a class action lawsuit. I mean, these companies got to pay punitive damages. This has got to be an ugly payout on their part for doing what they're doing to this country. Chris, you're invaluable reporting. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Amar. That one was somewhat different than the one they had earlier that talked about Portland. That's why I stated. But this is the one that we needed to hear. Now, I'm basically imagining that whoever might take time to look at this is probably, maybe a Negro. And I know sometimes you all might not get this type of information. So I'm presenting it here on Speak On It because that's what Retro Current team do. We are about the business of bringing awareness to us and anybody else that'll listen. Stop thinking that, a particular network is this or that. Get the information so you'll know the information. Even if you think it's false information, it's the thought that might encourage you or inspire you to think differently and find the other information. Because any information, true or false, that's just a matter of whoever is determining, whoever is in control for the most part as it relates to this garbage that's flowing through these media outlets at this time. That information there, we need to know, Negro. We do. Because the preacher and the politician in the black community, they ain't giving you all that. And we doing it, don't speak on it because we doing that. Now this piece here, we're going to give you Reverend Knight. Y'all know I like to use Reverend Knight. Oh, it's back the other way. Reverend Knight, I think, yeah, you'll find it. I want to end it, and I hope they let us play it. I think that's Phil Donahue that was interviewing Reverend Knight. And I think it's a very appropriate, encouraging message. And a lot of folk don't know some things, and they need things that will encourage them to look within, to find the strength, to endure the hardships that being a Negro automatically bring once they pop you on your little behind and you start crying. You're going to probably be crying for a long time. We're just trying to help you get out of it. It ain't that far down, Amara. This is something that I found recently since the last show. So if you bad, let me just follow you here. You'll see something here that is important to the mind of people. No, not him. That's Bishop Patterson. It's important right there. Yeah, I'm
sitting in the sky with his feet propped up on top of the world called God. I believe that God is the presence of good that is within each individual person, whether he knows it or not. And this is where my ministry comes in. It is my ministry to make the individual aware that the presence of God, the presence of all good, the potential of good is within each individual and not in the sky somewhere.
But traditionally, especially in the Deep South, it began and of course has spread to the urban centers of the North, certainly in the last several years. The notion that this doom and gloom the spell under which we all are functioning will someday end, and Jesus will take us into his great paradise that he has prepared for us. So cope now, because there is a great reward later.
I usually say, when you find the heaven that is within you, then you will find yourself in heaven. Not until then, because heaven and hell are both states of mind. When a person is in a very doubtful and negative state of mind, he's always going to catch hell. He's going to experience hell. But when the individual finds the heaven, the harmony, the God, the good, the love that is resident in his own being, then he begins to experience heaven.
So when a person says, "Oh Lord, I'm sorry, please help me get through this vale of tears, this valley of temptation," you deplore that, don't you?
Well, if this is the person's only understanding, he has to pray on the level of his understanding. However, the Bible does say, "Be you transformed by the renewing of your mind." And this is what this ministry does. In other words, you change your conditions by changing your self-image. If you see yourself as a person who is in a vale of tears and under conditions and circumstances, that's the way you will be until you change your mind, until you change your self-image.
Is it your view that traditional fundamentalist religion makes it more difficult to change one's mind?
Yes, it does, because here again, you see, in that type of religion, we are taught that either God or the devil are responsible for what happens to us. But in what I call the science of living, or the science of self-awareness, I teach that the individual is responsible for his condition, and not only that, the individual, by using his own mind positively, can change his condition and modify his conditions. And so the responsibility for our lives does not lie with some deity in the sky, but it lies with the God power within each one of us.
And is that what you mean by saying, don't wait for your pie in the sky by and by?
Get it now with ice cream on top.
That's a kind of euphemism which is the core of your message, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Because I believe that good is now. Whatever good is, whatever God is, that is now.
But how do I get it if I come to one of your services and I'm one of 4,000 people and you are attracting larger and larger crowds? I don't understand how, if I'm in the back row, what are you saying to me that's going to get me out of this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy of doom? And
all right, first of all, I make the individual aware that the power of God, the power of good, the power of love is within his own being, and that he has the power to believe in himself, and by believing in himself correctly and positively, he can be what he wants to be, do what he wants to do, and have what he wants to have. Also, one of the techniques that I teach is called visualization. It teaches the person to see himself being, doing, and having the good which he desires. Because here again, I regard the Bible as a book of psychology rather than a book of theology. And the Bible says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And it simply means that if you cannot see yourself in a better condition, you will die in the terrible condition that you're in. And so by teaching individuals, even in mass, to see themselves in a better condition, they are led into the correct ways and means of becoming better, doing better, and having better. And I see it happen all the time.
Was there an audit or a survey of some kind that said that your foundation or your organization in 1972 took in $6.5 million?
I certainly trust that that income has risen tremendously since then.
Yes.
That's an old figure.
Is it? Well, what are we talking about? Can we?
I have not entertained any figures either of income or disbursements for the past 2 years. But our ministry is a multi-million-dollar operation. It is rich and it is successful. I'm glad about it and I don't apologize for it.
Well, inevitably there would be, I'm sure you're already accustomed to, those who are raising their eyebrow at Reverend Ike and saying, wait a minute, have we got another slick preacher here who is coming on with the good word? And in fact, you're unabashedly appealing for funds at all of your gatherings. Don't you say, no change, please, change in the service?
Yes, I tell people that change makes me nervous in the service.
Yes. All right. So you understand then how some would accuse you of exploitation, of take the money and run.
I can understand
America
that.
is fraught with those people.
But that doesn't bother me for a number of different reasons that people would think for one moment. You cannot operate at the level that I operate without being closely watched by the IRS. It would be impossible for me to have a multi-million-dollar operation and not be on the up and up. The Internal Revenue Service just does not permit that.
Now, see, that was a Negro. And you know, with your hypocrite fate behind. Back in his day, Negroes thought he was one of the worst. I'm talking the average one of y'all thought he was the worst thing and that he was this and that. He was just telling you the truth. But you felt about him like you felt about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. In their day, you was a slave-minded Negro. You were. A colored. A boy. A gal. And anybody talking like him, you thought something was wrong. And then he had his hair, back then we called it processed, looked like it was processed. It might have just been that good, what we call good hair. Oh, I remember. I just told y'all my experiences on numerous occasions about my whatever. I was on a radio show way back in them days, and you know, I use Reverend Ike like I'm using now as it relates to information. Because his information had preachers actually taught that type of sermon. The Negro would be in a much stronger political, economical, culture, personal position that he is now. Did you find that piece about, what's the jig? Biden said the pandemic is over. If not, the program is over. So until next week, Alafia, peace, and good health.